efforts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for appearing here today. I want to ask about the performance audit report you did on governance of climate change commitments for the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. You concluded in paragraph 12, quote, the Department reports annually on progress towards targets, however is unable to demonstrate the extent to which specific Australian government policies and programs have contributed or are expected to contribute towards overall emissions reduction. Yesterday, I asked the Department about your conclusion and estimates in February, and again yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw that. Did you see it?
No.
Okay. They were very forceful in saying that they didn't agree with your conclusion and maintain they do measure the specifics. Can you elaborate on exactly what you found in terms of the specific policies and programs measurement, please?
Yes, and I think we've got the relevant audit leader here to do that for you.
Corinne Horton, Acting Group Executive Director, Performance Audit Services Group. So within, as you've correctly characterised, within the overall conclusion, we concluded that the DQ, or the Department, do measure broadly and overall Australia's greenhouse gas emissions, but we weren't able to determine the specific contribution that individual Australian government programs made towards that. So it was reported overall, but that further breakdown below.
So I'm not trying to put words into your mouth. I'm trying to confirm my own understanding and clarify. They have a number that represents what they estimate to be Australia's overall greenhouse gas production, but they cannot tell anyone what specific contribution from various sectors or various...
They do a breakdown of the various sectors, and that's in the international and the broad reporting that we provide, that's provided there. There's been a number of new measures and additional measures that have been announced under the government. We could see some of those had the specific measures broken down underneath, but not all of them.
Are there any specific measures, or are they projections based upon calculations?
They're projections.
They're all that's my understanding around the world.
They have projections where they're looking forward to what we are aiming towards achieve,
yeah.
And they also report on what we have.
Yeah.
So they do
again,
the both.
They're not direct measurements because it's very hard to directly measure carbon dioxide coming out of any.
There is the broad process we have in our international reporting arrangements.
Who seeks audits? I've been through this before, but I'm sorry, I can't remember. Who seeks? Who asks you to do an audit?
Well, nobody. People can, but the Auditor General's can't be directed to do an audit.
No, I get it.
We develop a forward work program. We're required to consult with the Parliament. That's managed through the Joint Committee of Public Accounts and Audit. The Auditor General is required to take into account that committee's view of priorities. My understanding is that committee writes out to other committees and gets views about what's on the mind of those committees as priorities for audit. Individual members of Parliament sometimes write
we've done that.
An audit.
And we're very happy with the way we were treated.
So the program is really at the discretion of the Auditor General. In deciding to undertake an audit, we do look at the coverage across the sector. We look at the sorts of activities that are being undertaken, whether it's service delivery or asset management, procurement, grants administration, etc. And then we have to look at our capacity to do it. Do we have enough people with enough skill in the particular area? Do we need to sort of supplement the skill from elsewhere? So it is all in the discretion of the Auditor General, and we do seek to get coverage across the sector on a wide variety of policy and program areas.
Yeah, well, you're continuing your predecessor's fine habit of being very clear in your answers, so thank you.
Thank you.
Is size or potential impact of an error in a department one of the considering factors that you would use? So, in other words, if there's a huge cost that may be incurred by mistake in that department, would that be a consideration?
Well, we do take into account risk in different areas in sort of activities of the public sector. And that risk can manifest itself in the size of expenditure. But we also do small things because they're important, and they also provide information to the Parliament as well as an opportunity for the public sector to learn from our work.
Yeah, okay, so it's not, it is, risk is a consideration.
Yes.
You're minimising the risk to taxpayers, exposure
Yes.
to taxpayers. Okay. What's your response to the Department rejecting your conclusion that they can't demonstrate the specific effect of these policies?
So we actually included in the report at the end of Appendix 1 our response to the Department's response to us, where we outlined why we came to a different conclusion than what the Department outlined in their response.
So, Senator...
What was the name, what number of that appendix?
So it's in Appendix 1.
It's at the very end of Appendix
Yes.
1. There isn't actually a paragraph number. It's headed with ANAO comment on Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water response.
Thank you. Now, it's important. I'm going to come back to something in a minute. This is discussing understanding or measuring. No, it's understanding, it's not measuring because it can't be measured. Overall emissions reduction. I'm going to come back to another point later, separate from your report. In the meantime, it's important to actually know how policies are or aren't affecting measurable outcomes. Is it right to assume that's why you focused on this issue in your report? Or what was the reason, if not?
It's typical for us to look at a program. In this case, it was a set of activities that are done by the Department of Climate Change, etc. And then we generally look at the governance, the activity, and then the monitoring of the activity. So reporting on the success of a set of activities or an activity is typically what we do in looking at whether or not the expenditure, the activity, is meeting the outcomes required. It's not unusual for us to have a criteria that says, is this being monitored and reported effectively?
But you go beyond that and look at the overall governance of that,
Correct.
monitoring everything.
Correct.
Okay. If the actual specific effect of policies isn't being measured, then surely it's very difficult to measure success or failure, and that's what your report found, that the Department can't demonstrate those specific effects.
Our report found, I think, as Ms Horton has said, that we couldn't see that line of sight across each of the measures that it was monitoring about what the measurement showed.
Okay. Now I'd like to come back to what I foreshadowed a minute ago. There are two measurements that should be in place, I believe. One is the measurement of the amount of carbon dioxide produced from human activity. That's one thing. But then surely we should be measuring the effect of that carbon dioxide from human activity on a climate variable such as temperature or snowfall or ocean temperature, whatever. See what I'm getting at?
I can, but it wouldn't be for me to comment on what a government policy, no matter who the government is, on those things. It's our job to audit whether or not people are doing within that policy what they said they would do. It wouldn't be for me to stray into what's appropriate policy or what's appropriate measurement. It's whether or not what's in the policy is being delivered and being measured.
So let me just check my understanding there again, Ms Mello. If the policy said that the specific effect of carbon dioxide from human activity is this much, this quantity, and we need to therefore cut the production of carbon dioxide by this quantity, then you would measure both or assess both. But if they don't have one of them in there, then you'll only measure what's in the policy.
It's very hard to speculate. We would look at a government policy, how it's being implemented, whether the implementation is being monitored and what the monitoring shows. And if there was an outcome overarching that, how that measurement contributes to that outcome.
I don't engage in the conversation because that's not correct for Senator estimates, that's not appropriate. It strikes me, though, that to be able to have a policy on emissions reduction, you need to have the effect, the specific effect of those emissions on some climate variable, temperature, rainfall, snowfall, drought, storm, whatever. And then you measure against that. Without that specific effect quantified, it would be impossible to actually assess different alternatives to implementation, different strategies, and it would be impossible to assess progress towards or track progress towards achievement of the goals. Am I on the right track?
The ANAO can only audit what's in front of it.
Yeah, okay.
If we go in to audit something of that broad nature, we have to look at what's in place, how it's being managed, how it's being reported, and does that meet the outcome?
Yep.
And
okay.
not whether the outcome is right.
Right. Okay. Just in your work in various departments or for various departments, has anyone specified the effect of carbon dioxide from human activity on climate or any part of climate?
It's not something we've audited. No.
Sorry?
Not specifically.
No, I didn't think so because no one has been able to tell me that amount. So thank you very much.
Not specifically that we've audited.
Sorry?
We haven't specifically audited that space.
Okay.